Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of the Footy and Stuff podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Patane. If you are new here, welcome. If you are not new here, Swig of Water, welcome back. Um, yeah, we're not going to delay today. Um, we've got lots to get through. We've got a big round of footy, including maybe the saddest I've been at the footy in years. We've got a gather round preview to go through, which is going to be great fun. Tips, super coach, player of the year. You know how it goes if you've been here. If you haven't been here, that's what we do. Um, so yep, let's do it. Let's get to it as soon as possible, please. The reason I'm abrupt is because we start off the week with Carlton and Collingwood. Um, what do I usually do? I usually do the score first, don't I? Carlton, no, Collingwood first. They were the home team. 8-15-63 defeat Carlton 6-10-46. Oh boy. What do I say about this? Mainly about Carlton's performance, because we can get to Collingwood in a minute. What do I say about Carlton's performance that I haven't really said in the last 4 weeks? Or that hasn't been said collectively about Carlton from the fan base in the last 4 weeks? The answer is nothing. There is nothing I can say about this that will add any sort of knowledge to the situation because it's just dire, as we've all been saying. Um, for a good couple of weeks now. Yeah, it's just awful. It's awful. I'm getting really sick as a Carlton fan of these first half performances. I say giving us faith. I don't take faith out of them anymore because I know the last 4 weeks we've dropped a first half lead. I know that no lead is, I guess, guaranteed watching this team. But generally speaking, we get this lead in the first half and we think that there's something coming out of it, and then every single week it falters and it's terrible. We can't kick. The defensive issues are just I don't really, as I said, I don't know what I can possibly say that hasn't been said about this team. So I wanted to get that out the way as quick as possible. It's terrible. And then we can move on and we can talk about happy football stuff. But we also have to get Collingwood out the way. Collingwood were the better team for sure, obviously. It's not hard. What I take out of this for Collingwood is there's still a lot of room for improvement. I don't know if I don't know if they I don't know if they particularly looked outstanding by any stretch. Like there are a lot of teams that I think might have beaten Collingwood on this night, the way they played against us, if that makes sense. I think the scoreboard did definitely flatter us though. Only going down by 17 points. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm coming in every week saying I don't know now, like because I just don't know where this Carlton team goes from here. They play a West Coast side next week or this weekend. Um, that you would think that they should be beating. And we're going to talk about this later, but am I wrong for thinking that we're the favorite and that we should be winning this game? Probably not. But you have to question whether they can get it done based on what we've seen. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where to go from here. But this game was a mess. It was not a fun watch, especially as a Carlton fan, being on the losing end of a game like this. But even as a neutral, the amount of neutrals that I've seen talking about how poor this game was, to watch as a whole, just pure skill wise, especially in that first half, it was a mess. So yeah, is what it is. We take the loss against the rivals. I'm not going to talk about it much longer because I will be very sad. I already am very sad. I'm sad, but you get the point. Anyway, the next game of the weekend, thank God we can move on, was Geelong and Melbourne on Friday night. An interesting one. It kind of went the way I expected it to go. Like Geelong were far and away the better team. Melbourne, did they really address any of the issues that they had previously, especially the week before the game against North, stuff like that? There were portions of this game where they looked okay, I thought, because Geelong could have easily run away and won this by 80 points, just purely based on how the game started, in my opinion. But where the Cats kind of looked like they were going to start pulling away, Melbourne sort of stayed on their tail. I don't entirely know what the reason for that was, but I still feel that a lot of the issues that we flagged previously with the Demons are still there, and they have a lot to work on. I think Carlton and Melbourne are in a very similar position in terms of having, I guess, this level of quality. Well, obviously, I didn't put Melbourne in the eight, so I can't. I put Carlton top four, and I put Melbourne 14th. So I'm comparing teams that I saw very differently. But when you look at it in regards to their fan bases, these are playing groups that fans saw a lot more potential in than what they're showing right now, if that makes sense. And I think, much like Carlton, I just don't really understand where they go from here. In terms of the Cats, I thought for the most part they were very good defensively. Being able to control the ball across that back half, I think was a massive contributor to their victory in the end. Just slowing the game down, playing it on their terms, and finding those opportunities, and they defended very well when Melbourne were hitting them on the counter as well. So yeah, pretty good performance from the Cats overall. Can't really knock it too much, and they got the win in the end as well. I don't think I said the score at the start. 12-13-85 the Cats, 6-10-46 the Demons. Yeah, it was a game of football. Pretty well played by the Cats overall. On to Saturday and a game that I didn't watch live, but I had to get back to because, I mean, you'll see in a minute, and I think you know what I'm about to touch on. Gold Coast 13-13-91 defeated the Crows 14-6-90 by a single point in very dramatic fashion. Let's get straight into the nitty-gritty here. Was it a mark? Was it a free? I say no mark. I think he dropped the mark. It was a bit. I don't know. It was hard to tell, in all truth, and that's why it's a debate. I say no mark, but the free was definitely there. I understand in the moment why the umpire doesn't pay it because he drops the mark. There's a bit of commotion. You kind of want to put the whistle away in those moments. Fine, but it was probably a free kick, and it probably in the end cost the Crows the game. And now it's just another one that Crows fans can and will add to that list of moments. It is what it is, though. Aside from that, these two teams are fantastic. You know, from at this point, I kind of look at what finals are going to look like. And I think the teams to beat are Hawthorn, Brisbane, and probably GWS as well. They're probably my three that I think are probably going to be there at the end. If they're all top four, there's one spot left in the top four, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of these two teams. And there's only room for one, and results like this are going to play a massive factor in that. But also, these two teams for the years to come as well are going to be two powerhouses. Just a fantastic game of football. Two of the best midfields in the comp went at it once again. Riley Thorpe is just we're doing Player of the Year votes later, but unbelievable. And that battle with Mac Andrew is something that's obviously going to be revisited in the future, and it's going to be very good. There's just so many good players across both teams here, and they put on a show. And a 1 point win for Gold Coast, as I said, could mean a lot in the grand scheme of things, in regards to this ladder. So yeah, very good game. The Suns get the win. We move on. Interesting one at the MCG as Richmond go down to Brisbane by only 28 points. I say only 28 points because they probably could have and should have lost by a lot more. But Richmond, 13-12-90, lose to the Lions 18-10-118. Brisbane's issue over the first few weeks, I say issue, I mean, they've won every game, so take it with a grain of salt. But their problem over the first few weeks is that they haven't necessarily started games too well, and they've really kicked in towards the end of a game and grinded games out, grinded results out, and shown their quality across that late part of the game. It kind of looked that way again for a little bit against Richmond, who many would still say are the worst team in the comp. Brisbane's quality just shone through here. I think obviously they only won by 28 points, but they were up by 42 at three-quarter time. They really could have put the hurt on the Tigers here, and they didn't because credit to the Tigers, they gave it a red hot crack, dropping 13 goals on the reigning premiers with a team like this that isn't really expected to do much. is a pretty good effort. But I mean, that Brisbane midfield, like I talked about the Adelaide midfield and the Gold Coast midfield, I still think this is the best midfield in the competition by far. Just McCluggage, Dunkley, Neil Ashcroft is outstanding. Um, I'll rattle off stats and we'll do our Player of the Year votes later. But McCluggage 26 and 2 goals, Dunkley 30 and 10 tackles, Lockie Neal 42 touches and 7 clearances, Ashcroft 24 and 2 goals. It's just impossible. It's impossible to stop. And over 4 quarters, whether they have those down periods or not, whether they have those poor starts that they've sort of been having over the past few weeks, I think their quality is always going to show, and it's kind of what happened again. Obviously, as I said, Richmond gave it a good crack, but it was never going to happen against this Lions team. So, yeah, another pretty good performance from them, in spite of the fact that they didn't really win by as much as we expected. Win's a win, they take the 4 points. And they're all good there. Saturday night, North and Sydney. 8-4-52 North Melbourne plays 18-9-117 the Swans. Real interesting one here. Real interesting one. First half, I thought. Well, firstly, I want to say Sydney were fantastic. We'll get to them in a minute. First half from North Melbourne, I thought what I saw was more reminiscent of what we've come to expect from them this year. That real competitive brand of football, giving it a crack, even if the other team's better and you're not expecting to win. Showcase that improvement, and they were kind of doing that. They go into halftime only down by 22 points. It was there. The second half was an abomination, an absolute abomination. I mean, they only kicked 3 goals for the whole second half, and 2 of them were very late. Um, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But yeah, just not good enough. It was more reminiscent of old North Melbourne. It's kind of one of those ones where if North play those 4 quarters of footy and they play the brand that they're trying to implement, it's better than it has been in the past, and you can take progress out of that. But that second half was, yeah, not good. Not good at all. Nick Larkey was completely shut down by Tom McCartan. He kicked 2 late goals. That kind of papered over the cracks a little bit for him in terms of his stat line. Like he kicked 2 goals, well done. But it just wasn't there when North needed it. And yeah, that Tom McCartan, fantastic job shutting him down. But yeah, Sydney were just really, really good. Riley Bice, fantastic. What an addition. How this guy was never picked up. I mean, how old is he now? 24. So he got passed up on in a couple of drafts at least, I think. How he was never picked up is just a travesty. I thought Will Hayward was best on. We'll talk about that later as well. The Swans were good. Are they back? We'll see on Friday night because I think Sydney Collingwood, for both teams really is a good litmus test when there are kind of doubts as to what level the teams are operating at and where they'll kind of find themselves and where they'll fall this season. If either team goes out there and pumps the other team, probably a good indicator. If it's a close game, though, yeah, I mean, jury will still be out, but it'll be very interesting for sure. Sydney, great win here, though. Sunday games, GWS versus West Coast first. The Giants 20-12-132 defeat the Eagles 7-9-51. Just an absolute demolition job. Could have been a lot more, but there was a little period, I think maybe second quarter leading into the third quarter, where the Giants just weren't kicking any goals. Um, no, it was a real flat period. I've actually got the timeline here. Yeah, second quarter there were just no Giants goals for probably about 15-minute period. Um, but yeah, aside from that, it was just a demolition job. I couldn't help but sit there knowing that Carlton are playing this West Coast team next week and thinking we've got to beat this team because they're just not. They're not about it. They're not about it for sure. Big story from this game, obviously, is Jesse Hogan's 9 goals. Definitely not 10. Could have been 10, should have been 10. But with that 10th shot at goal, he missed a lot. So it's still a straight 9. Fantastic. But yeah, no, Jesse Hogan, unbelievable. Their midfield was fantastic. Their forward line was terrific. I thought Darcy Jones was unbelievable. Yeah, everything just kind of went their way. Not much more that they could ask for as a team. And as I said, the Eagles just not good enough. Not that we're really expecting them to give much to a team like the Giants at NG Stadium, but it's just, yeah, there wasn't really a lot to give credit to. It was a pretty poor performance across the board, I thought. But yeah, they move on to Carlton, another winless team, and hell, maybe they're looking at us and thinking this is where we can probably start our season. Yeah, It's fascinating stuff. We'll talk about that later. But yeah. Port Adelaide versus St Kilda. This one started fiery. This was a good watch at the beginning. It was Jason Horne-Francis' first goal when he got that 50-meter penalty, and it was fiery, and it stayed a little bit. It was a very fun watch. Port Adelaide 10-12-72, defeated by St Kilda 13-11-89. For most of this game, St Kilda were just on top of them. Took a 23-point lead into halftime. Looked fairly in control for most of it. I think their biggest lead was 31 points, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll check that right now. Biggest lead, 31 points, close to the end of the second quarter. But just when you thought they were out of it, the Power looked like they were mounting a little bit of a comeback in the third and fourth quarters. I think it got under a goal late in the game. So that was a very fun watch. But yeah, no, St Kilda just too good. From a Port perspective, though, Jason Horne-Francis looks to be back to his best, 28 touches and 3 goals. I thought he was fantastic, and a big reason for why Port were ever even in the game. But I thought the quality that the Saints have had over the last few weeks, through Sinclair, Wanganeen Miller, Jack McRae, they all had pretty good games again. And as a collective, I just thought they were a bit too good. And that's something that's going to be difficult for teams to combat throughout the year when all those players are on. I think it's a combination that's really hard to stop. And it seemed that way against the Power as well, clearly. So yeah, good effort from the Saints. They get the win. They play the Giants this weekend, and if they happen to get the win there, you've probably got to start talking about this Saints team as a proper finals contender. But we'll see how they go there, and we'll see how they go in the next few weeks as well. But really good win nonetheless. Finally, the Dockers and the Dogs at Optus Stadium. Fremantle 15-7-97 defeat the Dogs 12-9-81. This was a fun game to watch, particularly early, just real goal for goal stuff. Look, the whole first half pretty much was goal for goal. And the teams were very evenly matched in terms of quality. It was a fun watch. The Dockers start to pull away. Heading to halftime, really, they were up by 32 points, so they pulled away pretty quickly at the end of that second quarter. Kept the lead for a while, and then it looked like the Dogs were starting to creep back in, but the Dockers were able to hold them away. And it was a really good effort from them in the end, I thought. Sarong was fantastic again, 38 touches, 7 tackles, 15 clearances, just unbelievable. He's shaping as a real Brownlow favourite this year. Andy Brayshaw, 29 and a goal, 9 tackles. He was fantastic again. Can't move on without mentioning Sam Darcy as well. 21 touches, 5 goals, 11 marks for the Dogs. Without him, there'd been so much strife. Like, they were probably in this game because of him, realistically. Aaron Norton not in the greatest of form. Jamara not in the side since the start of the year. And Darcy as that target man for the Dogs has just been fantastic. Unbelievable. Yeah, as I said, without him, they'd be in a bit of trouble. So he was very good once again. Which is a great note to lead us into our Player of the Year votes. We'll get to that game at the end, but we'll start off with the first 3 games of the week. Collingwood versus Carlton. George Hewitt, 1 vote. Darcy Cameron, 2 votes. Lockie Schultz, 3 votes. Geelong versus Melbourne. 1 vote to Connor O'Sullivan, 2 to Zach Guthrie, and 3 to Patrick Dangerfield. Gold Coast versus Adelaide. 1 to Tuke Miller, 2 to Dan Rioli, and 3 to Riley Thilthorpe. Starting with the Pies and the Blues, I gave 1 vote to George Hewitt. I didn't think past the 2 Collingwood players that I gave the 3 and the 2 to, that there were any real standout performers for the Pies. I thought it was a better overall team performance than the Blues that got them over the line. And I think that George Hewitt was by far the standout for the Blues. He kicked a third of our goals, and I know that's not hard in theory when your team's only kicking 6 goals to kick 2. Um, but for a midfielder to grab us by the scruff of the neck like he did and give us a real crack at winning realistically, um, given what the scoreline was pretty impressive. I liked what George Hewitt gave a lot. And when there's not a lot to like about the Carlton performance, I just had to give George credit here. I thought he was fantastic. 2 votes to Darcy Cameron. I think to this point, Tom De Koning is probably still the Australian ruckman after 4 rounds. But having said that, Darcy Cameron definitely made a game out of this one. And he was the better ruckman for sure. He was all over it as well. Fantastic at clearance, won the ruck battle, 22 touches, just really good. He was pretty hard to miss the way he was playing, I thought. Just fantastic. But the 3 votes go to Lockie Schultz. Just unreal. 18 touches, 7 marks, 7 tackles, and the 2 goals. The pressure was fantastic. He really put it on us. And I think by far he was Collingwood's most effective player. And as I said before, in a game where there weren't too many actual standouts, he was definitely one of them, I thought. Just put the hurt on us all night. Geelong versus Melbourne next up. The one vote went to Connor O'Sullivan. I thought the one and two were pretty, the three was obvious here um, from Friday night. But the one and two I thought were a bit tough because there were probably four or five players that could have fit into those two spots. Like I probably had it between Guthrie, Humphreys, O'Sullivan, Dempsey, and maybe Bailey Smith in the end. Any of those five players could have fit into those two spots, I think. O'Sullivan, I just had to give the credit because for such a young kid to be thrown into this Geelong team at the start of this year in his second season and to look as he looks like a veteran. He looks like he's been doing this for 5, 10 years. Like it was so composed, and he's just fantastic. So I gave him the one vote. Zach Guthrie was fantastic. He gets the two votes. I spoke before about the game that Geelong were playing and how commanding it was, and how composed they were across that back half. I thought that Zach Guthrie and Tom Stewart were the two, I guess, commanders of that game style that they were playing. But I had to give it to Zach Guthrie because I thought he was fantastic as well. And then the three votes against Patrick Dangerfield, and I feel like that's pretty obvious here. Fantastic forward of the ball, terrific leader's performance. It was one of those Dangerfield of old games. So really good from him. And then the Suns and the Crows. The one vote I went for Tuke Miller. It was going to be one of those Gold Coast midfielders, I thought, because they were all pretty good. And I just had to give it to the one who I thought was the standout of the bunch. And Tuke Miller just keeps popping up. 24 touches, one goal, five clearances, three tackles. He's getting on the scoreboard every week, and I thought he was fantastic again. Dan Rioli gets the two votes, and once again, what I spoke about at the start of the year and what I feel like I've spoken about the last 3 weeks now is how much Dan Rioli and John Noble have brought to this team with that transition of half back. It was happening again, and he was by far Gold Coast's best player on the day, I thought. But he was not the best player on the ground because three votes go to Adelaide's Riley Thilthorpe in a loss. Because what more could he have done? What a performance from Riley Thilthorpe. 16 touches and 5 goals, just so good. He's going to be one of the best key forwards in the comp for the next 10 years, quite easily. If he's playing like that every week. Just unreal. Next three games, Richmond versus Brisbane. I gave one vote to Lachie Neale, two to Will Ashcroft, and three to Hugh McCluggage. North Melbourne versus Sydney, one to Tom McCartan, two to Riley Bice, three to Will Hayward. GWS West Coast, one to Darcy Jones, two to Tom Green, and three to Jesse Hogan. Richmond and Brisbane, I thought the 3 and 2 were pretty straightforward for this one as well. The one was between Lachie Neale and Josh Dunkley. And I gave the edge to Lachie Neale because he was just everywhere. Obviously, Josh Dunkley defensively was very good. They were both fantastic at clearance, but yeah, 42 touches, just Neale was everywhere. So I gave him the one vote there. Will Ashcroft was top tier once again, 24 touches, 2 goals. I thought he did more than enough last week for me to give him the edge, but this week, Hugh McCluggage was just fantastic. His defensive side of his game is always on point, but I felt this week it was at a level where I just couldn't look past him for those three votes, and he had the 2 goals as well. So that impact in both those areas has just been so plain to see. And yeah, definitely deserved a 3 voter there. North Melbourne versus Sydney, one to Tom McCartan. We spoke about how he shut down Nick Larkey before, but yeah, I'll say it again. Until those 2 goals late in the game for Larkey, he was pretty much a non-factor, and that was down to the work that McCartan did until that point. So one vote for him, 2 votes to Riley Bice. What can I say that I didn't say before? How this guy was never picked up in the draft is beyond me, given how he's playing and how he played against North on the weekend. Just fantastic out of defense for them. And then Will Hayward, 3 votes. We spoke about him as well. Got on the scoreboard, which you always expect from him, but the forward pressure and the defensive work from him were top notch, and he was probably the best player on the ground by far, in my opinion. So really good from him. Giants Eagles, 1 vote to Darcy Jones. I mean, a game like that, some weeks would probably get you 3 votes, but they were just all so on. So it was hard to share the votes around here, but I thought Darcy Jones was definitely good enough for a vote. He was fantastic. Tom Green, a bull once again, got his 2 goals as well, but the 37 touches, 7 clearances, just a real typical Tom Green game there. So he was fantastic as well. And then the 3 votes to Jesse Hogan. Who else? 10 marks and 10 kicks, resulting in 9 straight goals. Just elite. So elite. Unbelievable. Yeah, couldn't be anything else but three. And the final 2 games, Port St Kilda, one to Jack Sinclair, two to Nazai Wanganeen Miller, three to Jason Horn-Francis. and the Bulldogs and the Dockers, one to Andy Brayshaw, two to Sam Darcy, three to Caleb Sarong. Port and St Kilda, we spoke before about how well the Saints individuals combine, or have been combining in these games. Sinclair with the one was fantastic once again. He's pulling together a real solid period of consistency here. 25 touches and a goal. Really, really good. And Nazai Langley Miller with the two, also 25 touches and a goal. I thought he was just fantastic. So clean with it, as he is every week. But yeah, he was really good on the weekend as well. Three votes, though, go to Jason Horne-Francis. And I mean, yeah, even despite the loss, 28 touches, three goals, six tackles, six clearances. So far this season, he's probably looked a little off the pace based on what we saw last year and what we've come to expect from him. But this was well above the level that I'd be happy with from Jason Horne-Francis week in, week out if I was a Port fan. And finally, the Dockers and the Doggers. We spoke about all three of these players before, so I'll rattle through it. Andy Brayshaw, one vote, 29 and a goal, nine tackles, fantastic from him. Two votes to Sam Darcy. The Dogs would be absolutely nothing without him, as I said. 21 touches, five goals, 11 marks. Just, he's unstoppable. He's absolutely unstoppable. And speaking of unstoppable, Caleb Strong with the three, 38 touches, seven tackles, and 15 clearances, as we said before. Just an absolute beast, an absolute beast in the middle. If the Dockers do anything this year, he's crucial to it, absolutely central to it. And now we can take a look at our leaderboard. So Dawson, Warner, Merritt, Anderson, McRae were all tied on five at the end of round three. None of them were able to pick up votes this week, and they've been knocked down a peg by Caleb Sarong, who, with two consecutive three voters, is now the outright leader on six votes. McCluggage and Ashcroft have joined the pack of five voters, so they will be chasing Sarong too. But yeah, really good game from Caleb Sarong again. Sees him shoot right to the top. And now it's time for the Supercoach review. 2,072 points in round four was enough for top 2%, ranked 3,839, which was a pretty big jump on round three. We're 11,000 and something, 12,000 and something rather, in round three. I wasn't happy with it because I saw the mistakes I made, and we had a pretty good round in round four. So I'm pretty happy with that. We're now ranked top 2% overall as well. 3,230th out of 183,000 teams is pretty good. Is pretty good. I should be pretty happy with it. In terms of the team itself, defense, I was more than happy with. I lost 5 points fielding Roberts over Trainer. You can't really foresee that when Roberts has been playing the way he has been. Whitfield unreal, Sheasel unreal, Clark very good, Bice fantastic, Connor O'Sullivan fantastic for his level as well. Where did I go wrong this week overall? It was the captain choice. I thought, obviously, I looped Tom De Koning. 101 wasn't really enough for me, and I moved to Noah Anderson at home because I thought his home form has been traditionally pretty fantastic. And I thought that that was the right choice. Turns out there were a lot of better choices. Horne-Francis at 153, Sarong at 142. Either of those two defenders, Whitfield and Sheasel. Jordan Dawson would have even been better from the same game. I thought the midfield was pretty good overall. The rookies were pretty good, especially Ashcroft and Reed. Jerry 94 being pretty comfortably beaten, I thought, by Brodie Grundy is pretty good too. When he's back to beating opponents, he's going to score very well. Tom De Koning 101, as we said. Ranking a little bit unders at 81. McRae 100. Horne-Francis we already spoke about. Daniel 92. Davidson back to 54. Max Hall 56. And then Christian Moraes, who I brought in a trade, scored 43. So yeah, 2072 I think is pretty good. We're back to a full scoring team this week, so I'll work out what I'm doing with all of this in the next couple of days. Obviously, last week after recording, we brought in Jordan Dawson for Will Day, and we brought in Christian Moraes for it escapes me. I can't remember who. But yeah, those were the changes we made. We'll make a couple more changes going into this week. Obviously, O'Driscoll is something we have to address with that injury. But yeah, overall pretty happy with what I did. Could have gotten a little bit more from the captain choice, but it is what it is. And after a quick lighting fix because the sun was moving right to my eyes, we can move on to the tips for gather round. Let's go. Adelaide versus Geelong to start us off. I think the Crows will look fantastic. And they looked really good against the Suns again, and they could easily be 4-0 after that umpire decision. Obviously, the Cats have had their down periods. Obviously, they were 1-2, but the win against Melbourne will give them a little bit of momentum coming into this game. However, gather round, Adelaide Oval, Thursday night. The Crows are up and about, and they'll be looking for blood. after what happened on Saturday, and I think they're going to come out really good. The Cats will give them um, a good game for sure. It's not going to be a drubbing, but I think the Crows are going to be hard to beat on Thursday night. So I'm going to give them the win over the Cats by 23 points. Collingwood Sydney Friday night. I spoke before about how I think both of these teams really need this one. Really need this one. Sydney until the weekend against North Melbourne hadn't really shown much of their quality until that point, and that was their first really good win, I thought, of the year. Collingwood, on the other hand, the loss to GWS was pretty poor, and since then in the wins, I don't know if they've necessarily been fantastic. However, they have been getting the wins, which is what you're there to do. Were they fantastic against the Blues? I don't think so. Um, Although I do think the scoreline definitely flattered us. But my point is, I think it showed more about Carlton than it did about Collingwood, if that makes sense. I think these are two pretty evenly matched teams right now. And I think the team that is going to win is Sydney. I think Sydney are going to win this one. I think they just need it that little bit more. Like they're kind of on that edge bit where, as I said, they haven't really shown much until this point, and they really need that win to cement themselves again because they were the best team all year last year, realistically. So we know the quality's there, and I think they're going to get this win by 10 points. So Swans for me there. Gold Coast, North Melbourne. Man, I didn't like what I saw from North in that second half last week at all. I don't know what it does for them going forward this season. The first half was really good. As I said, it was that competitive brand of football that we've seen. But playing like that in the second half and taking that into this week against one of the most informed sides in the comp at Barossa Park, I think this is going to be dirty for North. It's going to be ugly. I think Gold Coast going to win by a lot. And I mean, it's what we've said the last couple of weeks. If North can be competitive, then it's good signs. But I don't know. I don't know. Bad signs after what I saw at the end of last week. I'm going to go Gold Coast by 56 points. Carlton West Coast must win for the Blues. As I said before, are Carlton fans wrong for expecting to win this game? No, because we should be winning this game. West Coast have probably, based on what we've seen, been the worst team in the comp to start the year, realistically. But that being said, you have to look at how Carlton have approached games in the last few weeks and wonder, are they actually up to it? If we're put under pressure by this Eagles team, as stupid and crazy as it sounds, if we're put under pressure by this Eagles team, there's probably half a chance that we fold under the pressure again, based on what I've seen. In saying that, though, I think we're just miles better, aren't we? Aren't we? I don't think it's wrong to say that. I think we win this game pretty comfortably. Will it paper over some cracks? Maybe. I think even if we win this game by a lot, we should be hypercritical of what Carlton dish up in this game. But that being said, I'm expecting a big win. Um, what's overboard and what's conservative here? I don't really know. Let's give Carlton the win by 45 points and just see what happens. But as I said, expect the unexpected with this one because honestly, I just don't know anymore. I really don't. Bulldogs Brisbane at Norwood Oval. It's a crime, an absolute crime that Brisbane are playing at Norwood Oval this weekend. However, it is what it is, and I think they're going to win pretty comfortably based on what I've seen. The Dogs have shown a little bit over the last few weeks. I think they're probably going to show a little bit again. I don't think it's going to be anything too embarrassing for them, but I think, as has been the case over the last few weeks, Brisbane's quality will just shine through, and they'll win this pretty easily. So I'm going to go Brisbane by 27. D's and the Bombers at Adelaide Oval. The D's just, again, last week weren't impressive in the slightest. I don't think they fixed any of their problems. And as I said in the review before, Essendon, coming off a bye and coming off a win like they had 2 weeks ago, are going to be ready to take this one on. And against the Melbourne team who don't impress me at all, and I don't have any trust that they're going to fix any of those problems heading into this game, I'm going to give the Bombers the win here. So we're going to go Essendon by 20 points. Tigers and the Dockers at Barossa Park. Yeah, the Tigers are going to get smacked silly in this midfield battle. Sarong and Brayshaw, the way they've been playing, it's just going to be Hayden Young might be back as well. So it could be ugly for the Tigers, I think. Do they give it another crack like they have been? Um, maybe. Maybe it's not a blowout, but I think I'm expecting Freo to win by a fair bit here. Probably in the 40 to 50 range. We'll go Dockers by 48, 8 goals. Saints and the Giants. As I said before, if the Saints win this game, we have to start talking about them properly when it comes to finals and being contenders. And obviously, it's early doors, as we've said. We don't know where this is going to go for them, where it's going to lead to. But if they win this game, there's a strong chance that they're about it this year. However, what I've seen from the Giants in the last few weeks, obviously aside from that Hawthorn loss, which you can excuse given the way Hawthorn are playing, and what I saw from them, especially in that Eagles game, they just ran over the top of them. And I think the amount of momentum that they're going to take out of that will probably make them too much for the Saints. So yeah, I'll bet this one to the Giants by not a lot. I think the Saints will be competitive again, but I think the Giants will do it by 25 points. And we end Gather Round with a massive one. There's going to be a lot of fire in this one. Port Adelaide and Hawthorn at Adelaide Oval on Sunday night. Everything points towards Hawthorn winning this game. Everything points towards Hawthorn winning this game. However, this feels like one of those games, and we see it every year on Anzac Day. We see it in the opening game of the season, or the opening game of round one between Carlton and Richmond. There are certain games where form kind of goes out of the window. And I think whether this is a one-off or whether this becomes a mini rivalry for the years to come, whether this becomes a game that happens every year at Gather Round, irrespective. This game this year, based on what we saw last year and the storyline that's kind of going into it, feels like a game where form is out of the window. Because as I said, I would probably tip Hawthorn 9 out of 10 times here throughout the year. This particular occasion, Port really need the win. There's a bit of venom in it. It's on their home deck. Will Day's out, which is a massive out as well. Obviously, Hawthorn have a fantastic team, but something you have to take into account. I just feel like Port might get the win here. I just feel like they might. Come at me, Hawthorn fans. Port Adelaide are winning this game by a goal. It just feels like that's what is happening here. Doesn't it? Does it? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm going to look stupid. I wouldn't be surprised if I look stupid because Hawthorn are really good. But it's just one of those games. It just is. And I think Port are going to be up for it. It'll be interesting. It'll definitely be interesting. That's for sure. So with that, we have reached the end of episode 21 of Footy and Stuff. It's going to be a massive, massive weekend of footy. It's been really good the last couple of years. I was in Adelaide for the last two. Obviously not going this year, giving it a break this year. So we'll be watching every single game from the couch. But yeah, just it's going to be very, very good. But until then, enjoy Gather Round. Please like, subscribe, leave your comments, follow all the socials. All those links are in the description as per usual. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, my own TikTok. And yeah, that is all. I will see you next week.